Welcome into the sacred space of three spiritual besties. Grab a seat and join us for raw and unfiltered conscious conversations. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Conscious Conversations. Today's episode focuses on using meditation as a tool for spiritual growth. So I kind of wanted to go around and see what meditation means to you. Can you guys give like a brief explanation of what it is and why it's relevant to you today?
Yeah, so for me, as I've come into this practice of meditation, I've discovered it to be more of a sense of awareness and a sense of connection, right? So, like a connection of not only my thoughts, but my feelings and my physical body, where I'm feeling things, why I'm feeling things, how my thoughts are contributing to them. And then really it comes down to becoming an observer of all of those things, being able to become into a state of separation consciously.
I'd say for me, similarly, but just a little bit of a different perspective that it's where all energy meets. That's kind of like how I visualize it or kind of set the intention when I meditate. It's like what am I meeting with? Who am I meeting with? What's coming forward? Am I meeting with me? Am I meeting with a guide? Am I meeting with a specific energy of healing? What meeting am I entering? It kind of reminds me of how you would kind of potentially set up like a meeting with a business partner. Like who or what energy, wants to assist you and would benefit at that time. So meditating for me frequently is about some sort of a meeting with some sort of a frequency that needs my full conscious attention that isn't able to just come through, at some point throughout the day.
Okay, I love that. So that's kind of like a broad spectrum. So that could be meeting with higher self, that could be meeting with ancestors, that could be meeting with guides, angels. Who else? Who and what else can we meet with while we're in meditation? What is your guys' experience with that? And oftentimes, I'll say this, oftentimes what I've been doing in meditation lately is going to my guides rather than focusing on myself. Do you guys find that you do that?
I think that intention is extremely important. When you're going into, say, a sit-down meditation, it's important to have the intention of who do you want to communicate with, and then why. Maybe you're looking for guidance for something from your guides or from your higher self.
I would say I agree. I think you can really meet with anybody. I mean, goodness, I've even had my cat come to me energetically while meditating, So I think it really is a time to remain open energetically within your protections and boundaries and things of that sort, but open to, what you're able to receive during that time that could potentially be beneficial for your journey or your healing, or there's so many different aspects of meditation, which is why I think this episode is going to be really great for our listeners to really dive into all the different aspects, because when it comes to meditation as an umbrella term, there's so many parts to it. But overall, I would say like the label I would give it is that time to really sit with self and some sort of energy, which it can be your cat, your guides, or it could be future you. It could be your Akashic records. It could be your gifts. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. It can also be a gift or an energy of that sort as well.
I think that's a good point too. So Nicole says to set the intention, and then Ash is saying to kind of lean into um, what comes up for you. So those two are things that can coincide with each other. So as you're setting yourself up for meditation, what is it that you're feeling? What is it? Maybe even write like a prompt before you're going into meditation, which I think is actually another form of meditation, is journaling, right? Kind of piggybacking off of different types of meditation of what Ash and Nicole have mentioned. What type of meditation do you guys use? Let's consider somebody who's never meditated before. What is a good way for somebody who is meditating for the very first time? What should they expect?
When I first started meditating, I did guided meditations, just simple 10-minute guided meditations to start getting into what that feels like for me to be in a meditative state. And did I like it? Did I not like it? With the guided meditations, you can find them all over, and they have specific intentions. So say you're wanting something for abundance, say you're wanting something for sleeping. Those are things that you can find, and then it takes you through the steps, usually through breath work, and then sometimes it'll be like a visualization. So they give you all of that. They give you all the different steps and types of meditation within that meditation.
I similarly, when I first started meditating, I would use guided meditation because I think it is a really good first stepping stone, because a lot of people, I think, get caught up in what I kind of asked you guys, like, what is what should people expect? But in a sense, you kind of have to leave expectation behind, right? So with the guided meditations, they kind of do help your thoughts from kind of going all over the place, which is not what we're trying to stop, right? During meditation, we're trying to be an observer of those thoughts, and we're trying to allow them to come and go. But that's sometimes hard for us. So I think with the guided meditation, that's a good first stepping stone for somebody who is new to it. Ash, do you have any thoughts on this?
I personally hate guided meditations. I'm so sorry, listeners, but I do. And my reasoning is I think they're beneficial for people. I pay so much attention to them that I don't meditate. I listen to the person so intensively on like what they're saying. Okay, I'm at a door, I'm at a beach, I'm feeling the beach. This is amazing. I think it's beneficial to get the first layer of how to internally create a space. I think then that space needs to be opened up eventually, or right away, depending on how you're kind of feeling guided to, again, other energy, like your guides. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because when I first did guided meditations, I would sit there, I would envision, and then I'd feel like I was being pulled somewhere else. But I was like, no, like I'm doing this guided meditation. That thing that's pulling me, I must be getting distracted. I'm not supposed to be like paying attention to that. I'm doing this meditation. But eventually, when I started getting pulled elsewhere and I really like gave my energy freedom to explore those spaces are where I grew my gifts and connected with my guides. So I always speak to it kind of like when I'm doing meditating, I'm not paying attention to the front of my head, I'm paying attention to the back of my head. If you're kind of like in your crown center and you're meditating and you're thinking of, okay, visually or clairsentiently, I want to perceive energies from, the back, the subconscious. That's where a lot of this pure connection comes from. And I do feel like guided meditations get you a stepping stone into getting into that crown space, but it's more kind of like at the front into like a creation space. Whereas in the subconscious and kind of like the back of the crown, the back of the head is where a lot of like authentic connection comes from, those energies that you might be working with.
That's a really good point. And I really like that you talked about how you don't like guided meditations, because in a sense, it was still a stepping stone for you to learn what fits, right? Because there is so many different types of meditation. So there are guided meditations, there's breath meditation, there's mantra meditations. My personal favorite is visualizing a space. And I'm a person of habit, and when I first started, I needed to have the structure of it because I do battle with ADHD. If it goes too far off, I'm constantly thinking about what I'm doing in my day. So if I could offer a little quick step by step of what I do for those that it may be helpful for, or people who suffer with ADHD or are easily distracted during meditation. What I like to do is close my eyes, and then I take a few deep breaths. Usually I'll do cleansing breaths through my different chakra points, and then that helps to ground me. Then what I'll do is I'll visualize a metal pole, because metal is a big conductor of electricity, and I think of all energy as electrical current. So then I connect it to the astral, I connect it to down into the earth, and so it helps to kind of ground me into both spaces. Then what I do is, after I kind of get a good feeling of that, I'll go into, it's almost like a hallway. Or if you can, like when you walk into your house, you have like your landing, right? Where you have like your bench where you take off your boots and you put your purse up, or you put your coat up. Like I almost have that, and there's a little shelf. So what I do is I literally take off a bag, and that's my My baggage is there. It's not going to enter meditation with me. Then what I do is I'll take whatever thoughts are in my crown and I shelf them and I put them up there. So I'll literally take my brain and I'll be like, I don't need you right now. And I put it there. So then I'm shutting off my conscious mind and stepping into my subconscious mind. So then I enter my space. So after I'm done doing that, it's typically I'll walk through a door. If there's a mirror, there, I know where I'm going. There's a lot of self-reflection that needs to happen. So if I'm stepping through a mirror, I'll see where my guides take me or where my higher self takes me. And then typically if I'm meeting with certain guides, like if I know that I need to meet with whatever guide I'm using in whatever work I'm doing, what I like to do is I like to set up a meditative space with them. So I feel the most connected to self when I'm in nature. So I'll step through the door, step through the mirror, and I'll be in the same space every time with that guide. And what that does is that triggers everything else to shut off. And then now I'm meeting my guide and I'm having them come walk to me. And then we start a walk together and then they take me wherever they need to go. And then what you'll notice there too is when you're in these meditations, you have to remember that you are co-creating these meditations with yourself and your guides. So a lot of times when you step out of meditation, you'll be like, oh my God, did I imagine that? Do you guys get that?
Yeah, all the time.
Right? Did I make that up? Right? It's like the number one question I ask myself. Did I make that up? That was crazy. Did I make that up? So what I like to do is when you see little things that you think you've made up, you've made it up. You've made it all up. You're using your imagination for this. You're looking for the message in the creation that you're making with your guides and your higher self. So for example, right before we started this recording, I went into meditation and there was a grasshopper. And then I heard the grasshopper has the key. So then I came out of meditation. I was like, that was freaking weird. That was weird. What the heck was that? So then I looked up spiritual meaning of grasshopper. So stuff like that. So look for those signs or look for those little like nuggets or breadcrumbs that your guides and your higher self leave you and do a little bit further research. I start a meditation journal right after, like in meditation, I saw a grasshopper with a key and it had a key or it had a little top hat or whatever. And that's an easy way to kind of check back with self as well. Do you guys have a meditative space like you enter? What does your meditation look like as you're going into meditation, or what does it feel like to you?
I don't really have much to say. I don't have much to say on that. I don't meditate nearly as much as I used to. I feel like I kind of go about my day, and then what comes up for me is what I'm just dealing with at that time. I will say one of the strangest places that I feel like I go into that like meditative state of mind is when I'm driving. I get a lot of like connection and information and thoughts while I'm driving, and it's just so free flowing. And it's almost like I can't interrupt myself or question myself because I'm still focusing on driving. So like my conscious brain is driving, but then my subconscious is like, hey, we're still here, we're talking to you, and this is what, we want you to focus on.
I love that you mentioned driving as a meditative place or space for you, because you can really meditate anywhere. I meditate a lot in my bed because I like laying down. Like that's where that's where I feel really comfortable. But you can meditate like walking, doing the dishes, in the shower is a really common one for people. And I would say when I'm connecting through meditation, it is usually before I go to sleep, because I feel like that's a time where my body can finally be like, okay, we're gonna relax. We can enter this space. I found when I would meditate during the day, I would get really sleepy after, just due to how my energy was able to really be in the space that I was at and the energy it would exert. Just for me, I find it really beneficial to meditate at night and to connect. I get very warm. Like that's my sign that I'm really connecting to something. I get physically hot when there's a connection. And then usually I'll feel like a pressure either in my heart or in my third eye. That's a sign that I'm connecting with something. And when I first connect, I see a lot of colors, just like in my physical eyes. When my eyes are closed, usually you'll see kind of like black. I will see a lot of colors. And then sometimes I'll get a clairaudient message, which is just like a verbalization. Sometimes I'll see a visual. And similar to what Brittany noted is sometimes they're going to be a metaphor that you do have to research. And I will say more often than not, it's most likely going to be like that. And the spaces where we currently all are are at, I would say, is pretty like expert level in meditating. So if you are beginning and you're kind of like, I'm not getting any of this, keep trying. It takes persistency. That is persistency and consistency, both. I'm not sure, but I like both of those. It takes both of those things to really develop that connection with yourself.
It absolutely does. I couldn't agree more. And the more and more you are consistent with your meditations and your meditative practice, the more comfortable you're going to get. And then you kind of learn how to mute the self-doubt that you have. A lot of the times when you're doing these meditations and you are receiving kind of like these bigger, I don't know, like blurbs of not just information, but knowledge. Sometimes you get sacred knowledge passed to you in meditation, and it can be a bit unnerving. But it doesn't have to be something that is like, it could just be like as easy as that. Like you receive the information and then you move on. Like you don't have to sit with it for so long. So what Nicole is doing while she's driving and she is in her meditative state, she's being really aware of her thoughts and herself. And that's all that meditation is just being an observer of your aware consciousness. So as you're going through this and as you're practicing, I would say hang up all your judgment. Don't try not to judge yourself too much. And you'll hear me say this a million trillion times. Try not to judge yourself over and over again and just accept it for what it is, because the more you accept, the more you'll receive. And then your practice will just grow and grow and grow. Right. So I think it's beneficial for myself to just remind myself, like, if I am going into meditation and I have an expectation, what I like to do, because I'm a visual person, is if I'm having expectation of what I think this meditation will be, because a lot of the times I'll receive information before I'm going into meditation, what I like to do is take it and I put it in a little ball as if it's a little piece of paper, and then I throw it into a field, and then I watch a tree grow, and then I come back to that. And I do that with my thoughts too, and that's really helpful. So if I'm in meditation and I'm like, again, for example, this morning, I was like, oh, I got to call the rodent control because there's something in my attic. And like, I'm in active meditation, I'm doing this. And then I'm like, oh, I got to call the rodent control. So I took that and I like balled it up and I threw it in my field or in my forest, we'll call it at this point. And I was like, I'll revisit that when I have time. And then it helps me to just boom, go back into meditation. Okay, had that thought, observe that thought. It's okay. I got to remind myself to go back to that thought. But right now I'm being present in what I'm feeling, thinking, and downloading, I suppose, or I'm being present in the moment that is right here and right now.
One of the things that I struggle with, and you had brought that up briefly, is the expectation. Like I know that I struggle a lot with expectations of anything that I'm going into or setting time aside for. So that's something that's still like a constant struggle of letting go of the expectation of what I'm going to experience and just letting myself experience it. So sometimes what'll happen is I'll be in that meditation and I'll start getting these like almost like anxiety feelings and thoughts of like, okay, well, this is what I'm seeing. What does that mean? Like, and I start nitpicking on everything that I'm like experiencing instead of just experiencing it. So sometimes even when that happens, I'll have to kind of like take a moment and bring myself back. Like even if I have to get out and then go back into that state and that time.
I think that's something that's really important to know is that you're not looking for perfection here. You're just looking for connection, right? So your thoughts don't need to be perfect. You tuning in doesn't need to be perfect, right? Like the energy flow is the intention. And similarly to Nicole, when I first started meditating, I was just like pushing my thoughts away, and then that was causing the anxiety because I was trying to figure out what was happening, and then I was getting overwhelmed, and then I would stop the meditation rather than going back in like Nicole suggested, which is what I should have done, was go back into the meditation. But I was just like, screw this is clearly not working. Don't be like me. When you get in those spaces, give it some time and give yourself some time to get comfortable. You are creating a sacred space with yourself. And similarly, you may go to the same forest or a bubble in the ocean or a cave when you meditate. You usually will have somewhere you go consistently to begin that connection.
Yeah, it's almost like a home base, right? So like you're creating a space that's like your home within yourself. that you choose who can come in and talk to you or who you want to step outside and talk to. I think that's a really cool idea of it, of thinking of it as a space that you're creating that one, you're safe in, you know that that's a safe space for you to be, and that any connections that are coming in are also safe for you to interact with.
When you guys talked about getting out of a meditation and coming back in, I think that's something that's really important. And a way to do that, or a way to do that really quickly is to just get back. If you're too far gone and your brain is too far gone, or there's something that upset you, connect back with your breath. Your breath is always what's going to center you when you're in these meditative states. So even if you have to completely like black out your whole mind and you're just concentrating on your breath, that helps you bring you back to yourself. And it is something that's super useful if you did see something upsetting or you felt unsafe. It's really, really important to remember you can always just connect back with that, bring yourself back into your body, and then step out and then end your meditation if you need to. You're in control of this. This is your space. You are the one creating this space. And so it's important that you know that you're safe at all times. You can always bring a guide with you to help you feel that sense of safety as you're going through these things as well.
I think on the subject of safety, it's really important for me to share in case our listeners are having something similar. When I first started meditating, I didn't feel safe myself physically as a human, just due to past traumas and past energy. So for me to sit with myself was extremely uncomfortable, besides any of the extra fun stuff I was trying to do. So what I did was art. I got colored pencils, I got pieces of paper, and I just started doodling. I just started doing art. I said, my intention here is to connect with myself on a way that's external, so I feel like I have this buffer of safety. And as I continued to do that, I continued to heal. And then I was able to really feel comfortable in my energy and safe in my energy, and really to allow myself to get into that internal space. But at the beginning for me, it really was uncomfortable. It really wasn't something that I enjoyed doing. It wasn't something I felt comfortable pushing through either. And if you're listening and you're kind of like, sitting with myself in silence is extremely uncomfortable just because of how your nervous system is, because of your life and different things that have occurred, that's okay. You can connect with yourself through physical tools as well. And art was a huge one for me.
Yeah, I love that. I actually had recently got like an adult mindfulness coloring book, and I love it. I can just kind of get lost in the pages for a little while. And it's also fun to like see the colors I choose and like kind of really connect with it even deeper. Like, you do a little section and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you fill more in, and even like this space of like emptiness, right? Because it's blank, and then you're creating this colorful picture. Or even if you wanted to just do it all black and white, it creates just like a depth, a substance, a fullness to it.
I did want to just note that I love that, because how beautiful is it that we are still able to connect with ourselves through the chaos and through the trauma. And it might not be comfortable, but it can be something that eventually brings enjoyment, like through art or through walks or through self-care energy. And meditation to me really is a form of self-care, because it's a space where you quiet out all of the noise and you connect with you in a whatever way feels beneficial. The noise that's there, it's also there for a reason, but that is a moment that you can kind of intentionally really just tune out of those spaces, which I think is really beneficial for people.
You're totally right. To follow up what Ash just said, I want to ask you guys if we can do a minute of reflection each and what meditation has brought into your life. How have you benefited from it in a way that you are actually aware of? For myself, meditation has been the number one thing that has got me to be aware of my emotional reactions to things. When I'm in meditation, a lot of the times those emotions do come up. And because I am an observer of them, I'm able to see where they come from, why I react the way that I do. And then that trickles into my everyday life, which I really love and really appreciate. I have been able to do away with a lot of the anger that I've held on to in my life, which, like many of us, has been just an obscene amount. And I've really been able to refocus not just my reaction to people, but how I'm making people around me feel, because that was a big thing for me too, where I was always like, well, I'm not responsible for the way I make people feel. No, but I'm responsible for how I show up. And so that is definitely something that I've been able to reflect upon just through meditation and how I use it in my everyday life without actually having to go into meditation, right? I have these little moments of mindfulness and awareness.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like for me it's a lot about like my thought patterns. And when I get into those like negative thought patterns, how they're also so tied to my emotions. And then when I have outbursts or I feel overwhelmed, they really are like hand in hand for me. So I think one of the benefits that I've experienced a lot from meditation is that being aware of my thoughts and kind of picking like, well, why am I having them? Is this like something within my control? Is it something out of my control? And just really starting to like sit with that particular thought pattern, acknowledging it, validating it, feeling it, and then changing it. So that's kind of like where that alchemy also comes in that we've talked about previously, is understanding it, appreciating it, and then changing it into like a more of like a gratitude thought pattern. So like recently, my I was cooking dinner and it was like getting overwhelming around me. And then my husband and my son, they were like playing. And for a second I was like getting overwhelmed. And then I was like, well, they're playing. Like, what what is so bad about that? That's exactly what I would want is for them to play. Like, it's not, I'm the one that's having a hard time with it. And as soon as I started acknowledging it and like talking to myself about it, all that like irritation and overwhelmingness that I was feeling just dissipated. And it made it feel so much easier and so much lighter. And so for me, that in itself is what meditation has done for me.
That's that mindfulness within the moment. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Meditation changed the entire trajectory of my life. When you asked that question, I was like, wait a minute. I was meditating when I really got into it was during the pandemic. And that was when I really started exploring my spiritual gifts. That's when Ashlight Star was created. That's when I started having the freedom of my energy. That's when I became a successful business owner. That's when I became healing myself and building my relationship with my husband, and pretty much became the person I am today because I started meditating and listening to my wants, my needs, and my desires and how to get there, which is so profound for me to actually reflect on and think back that one decision that I made to just lay in the grass and meditate and look at the sky for like hours on end because I had literally nothing else to do and the world felt like it was crumbling, and that was the thing I felt like I had control over was my thoughts and my mind. And that's how I found solace and peace during those times. And in that, I ignited something within myself that really rippled to a beautiful shift in my physical reality. And I think that is, a really powerful thing to speak on meditation about. It really can shift your perspective and it can shift your reality based on action. And I really hope that that empowers you listeners to take the step to connect to self in some sort of meditative practice. And we have an affirmation that we wanted to share with you in regards to that you can use when meditating or throughout your day, which is, I'm happy to see this moment without judgment.
We hope today's episode helped to integrate meditation into your daily lives. It's our pleasure to help you along your journey, and we want to thank you for allowing us this space to share what we've learned along our way. Thank you guys for listening to us, and remember that meditation is a practice that grows with time. It evolves with you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode and expanding within conscious conversations. We now close this sacred space with love and gratitude. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected.